Welcome. The Passive Sampling Update team is proud to present an overview of the rigid porous polyethylene sampler technology. This quick video will provide a high-level overview of the device, as well as instructions on how to use, deploy, and retrieve the device. For more information on this and other passive sampling technologies, please visit the Passive Sampling Technology Update Guidance document. The Rigid Porous Polyethylene Sampler, or RPPS, is a diffusion-based equilibrium-type passive sampler that was developed to collect a wide range of chemicals including inorganics, trace metals, VOCs, and semi-volatiles in groundwater from discrete intervals within monitoring wells. Although the sampler was designed to collect groundwater samples in wells, the RPPS device can be deployed to surface water and be used to collect sediment pore water. During deployment, target chemicals in the surrounding aqueous media diffuse through the porous polyethylene tube and equilibrate with the water inside the device. The RPPS are then retrieved after a sufficient deployment time, which are determined by the surrounding aqueous medium and the target chemicals. The RPPS is shipped from the vendor already filled with deionized water in a sealed bag. The device is comprised of a rigid polyethylene tube that has caps or plugs on both ends. The tube is constructed from sheets of foam-like polyethylene with 6 to 15 micrometer pores. The RPPS has a 1.5-inch outer diameter and is 5 inches long. The sampler is filled with deionized water, capped at both ends, and placed inside a protective polyethylene mesh sleeve, which can be subsequently attached to a rope using zip ties when the sampler is ready for deployment. The RPPS device can hold approximately 120 milliliters. Larger sample volumes can be obtained by using multiple samplers attached end-to-end or side-by-side. Prior to deployment, it is recommended to coordinate with your analytical laboratory regarding the minimum volume requirement for target chemicals. The RPPS needs to be deoxygenated prior to deployment if redox-sensitive chemicals are to be collected. If dissolved oxygen is present inside the sampler, the redox-sensitive chemicals such as dissolved iron can become oxidized and cause interference with target chemicals. Vendors can complete this step prior to shipping. The device should be kept sealed when received from the vendor and be kept cool prior to deployment. When ready for deployment, open the sealed bag containing the sampler and remove it from the packaging. For deployment to a monitoring well, the samplers can be secured to a tether. The reagent water inside the RPPS device gradually leaks from the porous tube. The handling and deployment of the sampler has to be completed quickly to avoid losing the reagent water. Carefully place the sampler into the sampling media and the desired location. When deploying the device to surface water or sediment, ensure the sampler is tied to a firm point on land. After an appropriate deployment duration, gently retrieve the sampler from the sampling media. Any residue or solid buildup on the sampler during deployment should be removed with analyte-free reagent water and wiped with clean wipes. As mentioned, reagent water in the sampler can gradually leak over time. Wrapping a plastic wrap around the sampler can prevent water leaking from the sampler through the porous polyethylene tube during retrieval and sample collection. Remove a plug from a RPPS and immediately transfer the water sample inside the sampler into the laboratory-provided bottles. The filled sample bottles should be shipped on ice for analysis. Advantages in using the RPPS device include the following. The device can be used to sample for both inorganic and organic chemicals. The device is supplied by the vendor field-ready for deployment. And the device is disposable and does not require field decontamination procedures. Limitations in using the RPPS device include the following. Multiple samplers are necessary to collect a sufficient volume for analysis if sampling for a wide range of chemicals. The device must be sparged when sampling for chemicals affected by oxidants. The samplers can only be deployed to monitoring wells with a diameter of 2 inches or greater, and the device may not be applied to certain hydrophobic VOCs, semi-volatiles, and PFAS. Some important takeaways about the RPPS device include: the device come field-ready from the vendor and be kept in the sealed packaging to prevent reagent water loss. Deployment duration should be carefully determined for your target chemicals. The sampler must be kept in an oxygen-free environment if redox-sensitive constituents are to be sampled. It is important to inspect the sampler to assess if any precipitate has occurred within the sampler when sampling for trace metals. If the water is being sampled for dissolved metals, the sample water from the device will require lab filtration. Remember, you can learn more about the RPPS sampler and others in the ITRC Passive Sampling Update online guidance document.